What's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is another Chance Encounter. Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg. I'm a commercial real estate guy. I'm from the internet. Power lines that are just kind of close. What's up again? This is Dan Fredenberg. I'm joined today with Dennis. Is it is that a J sound or a G sound in your?
It's an R sound, Dennis Rogov.
Rogov. Okay. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, got it. Cool. So for those of you who've never seen a Chance Encounter interview before, I interview commercial real estate investors. I ask them which of 5 motivations most resembles their own motivation for their next deal. And then I go through the 6 different roles that are in a commercial deal, and I say which one of these is you. But one thing that I think is very important if you're going to be successful in life is you have to be able to effectively introduce yourself. So Dennis, can you please introduce yourself for the audience?
Hey everyone, my name is Dennis. I am based here in South Jersey. I have been living in this market for many years. I have done residential real estate and now doing commercial real estate, and have also done some side investments that are larger areas of real estate as shopping centers and other outlets.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so and for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dan Fredenberg. My background is in e-commerce technology and mass marketing, and so that's lead capture, lead generation, and then the online sales funnel. So with commercial real estate investors, that's generally helping putting on live events or selling coaching or training or whatever it is that they want to sell. But that brings me to our first segment, which is the motivation section. So that's a lot of the people who are just getting started. They don't really know what role they're going to have when they do a commercial deal, but at least they know why they're looking to get into it or get their next acquisition. So the first one is, typically the family offices and whatnot. You were discussing, you have a 506c fund that you're working on. And so people who are accredited investors and therefore eligible for 506c, one of their biggest concerns is that they're going to be worried about inflation. And so they need to make sure that their appreciation in or cash flow compensates for that, because otherwise the party's over, as they say. Which brings me to the next one, which is the one that most closely resembles my own situation. It's I, as a guy in tech, I'm on the higher earning side. But one of the problems of having a high salary is that if you do want to invest it into assets, you're going to have to pay income tax first. And so if I apply my skills to being part of the GP team, I end up skipping that step and I'm getting rewarded for my time with wealth. So I just think it's a smarter move. Which brings me to the most common reason why people want to be involved in a commercial deal is because they want to fast track their retirement. But the important thing that's implied there is that there's an end in sight. So it's not like they're just going to work and work and work until they drop. They are going to work until they don't have to anymore, which brings me to the next group, the super ambitious people who just want to buy their entire hometown. And those guys, they'll work until they drop, and that's a valuable thing to have in a team. It's just better to be clear about what those motivations are. Which brings me to the last one, which is having some sort of section of society that you want to benefit, and you realize that, for example, a librarian rarely has a hospital named after them. So accumulating wealth is one of the most effective ways to make a difference for a sector of society. So that would be the 5th motivation. So out of those 5, what combination best describes you, or like if there's a particular one that resonates with you? What are the motivations for you?
I appreciate you going through those, Dan. So for me, it's definitely legacy, family legacy. I have small children. I want them to see me how I'm growing and inspire and continue to grow the business. It's also about helping people, I at some point want to get involved in low housing to assist with people who are either homeless or cannot afford to pay for regular rent, so they can move into low house income and live a fulfilled life, because the units that I plan to at some point sponsor and have, they're going to have all the amenities that a Class A neighborhood is going to have.
Wow, yeah, that's really excellent. It's nice and inspiring to hear more people like that. So the next segment that I go through is I go through the 6 different roles in a commercial deal, and I generally start by talking about a repositioner. So a repositioner, that is also the acquisition person, but they definitely have to be underwriting it. In other words, tallying up, does this deal work? And what they're really doing is they're looking at these different properties because they're figuring out which one has upside. Now, there are a couple different ways you can get upside. One of the easiest ones is by more efficient operations. Now, of course, you can see that there's money going down the toilet here. So that means that part of operations is make sure that it's running very efficiently. But it's also things like marketing that have to do with money, which is you have to make sure that there's low vacancy rates. And then there's also the bookkeeping and all those sorts of things. And those would all be parts of operations outside of, fixing and unclogging toilets. But right now we're in the hottest real estate market in history. So efficient operations probably won't get you too far in your upside. So you end up creating more upside by getting a contractor, you fix the place up, and then you can charge more in rent. That is the usual strategy. But me personally, I'm from the internet. And so that means I'm not going to be dropping by every time there's a problem, which means I need boots on the ground. I need a local. I need somebody who can be there in an hour, because I don't even want to find my passport in 1 hour. So that's not going to be a way. So that's the day-to-day group, and the local makes sure that the contractor isn't spoofing what they submit and cutting corners, and then the same goes for the operations. But when you're taking down the property, you need to talk to some financiers. You need to talk to the bank and say, hey, I got a property that costs like $10-20 million, something like that. So I'm going to need $10 or $20 million from you, Mr. Bank or Ms. Bank, whatever you want. But they're going to end up going, okay, so you got this deal, you got the property behind all that, but they're going to say, who's your sponsor? Which is surprising to a lot of beginners. They don't know that you have to have somebody, if you want the loan, you're going to have somebody in the fold who already owns a similar asset. Okay, so if Elon Musk wants to buy a 350 unit apartment complex and he wants a loan, he has to have somebody in the fold who already owns a similar asset. And then you also have to provide a net worth of the amount of the loan at least. So those are the 6 different roles in taking down, operating, flipping an apartment complex. So it sounds like you're on the financier side, especially like involving some sort of capital raising. But please tell me your core competencies in the next deal, just so I'm not assuming.
You are correct. I am focusing on capital raise. I find that a lot of people find good deals, but they're not able to then have a way to purchase it. So I have been talking to countless of people that are dealing with those kind of situations. So I decided to specialize in that area and to help people who are even outside the real estate industry to get much better returns than you would get in stock market. Obviously, Bitcoin, you might get a better return, but obviously there's bigger risks. But I found that multifamily real estate, you will definitely find much better returns than you would do in any other traditional investments.
Right, right, excellent. So I just want to say again to the audience. Dennis works in 506C, so that's for accredited investors. Okay, so that's why we can be a little bit more upfront with the nature of the investment than we normally can. Which brings me to the next question that I generally have, which is describing the type of person who you can help more than anybody else. And usually because people want to use a 506B exemption, what'll happen is they're not allowed to publicly advertise, but then that way they don't necessarily have to be accredited investors, but accredited investors are still welcome in that kind of situation. So normally I say it's like, without breaking any SEC restrictions, who's the perfect person to help and no enticing investors. But if you're doing 506C, you can go ahead. But so who can you help more than anybody else? Is it somebody with the cash on hand, or is it somebody who's new to real estate and can provide you with deal flow, or what exactly, like, who can you help the most right
So I
now?
feel like people that are inside the real estate industry completely understand this whole concept. There's a lot of people out there that don't, that are accredited investors. You have your doctors, what I would call high-end professionals, and they're people who are essentially doing a day-to-day job that helps our society, but they're not really understanding how to properly invest. Sometimes they have their employers that provide them a 401k, or sometimes they even have some friends. But even from my local South Jersey Investor Club, people don't really talk about these kind of investments. And once I became aware of it, I was like, wow, I got to be screaming this from the rooftops.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely see what you mean. And I don't know how much of my content you've seen, but like, I like to take a pretty creative approach to just informing people how this stuff works. And one thing I'm looking to do with my kids is actually make a little a joke film of taking it right from the beginning, from standing in front of an apartment complex with a smile on your face and saying, yes, I want to buy this building, and just like make it so that an 8-year-old would actually understand, maybe with the use of the die or something, like how it would actually work out. But it really is something to behold when you realize that that's what's going on. And because it doesn't seem accessible to people, but it's far more accessible than it actually sounds, which I think that's the interesting thing about this industry. But so you and I met through Facebook, and also we're associated through Tim's mastermind. Is Facebook the best way to reach to you, or is it LinkedIn? I'm bigger into that, or is there a website that is more effective at reaching you?
So I'm heavily right now on Facebook. That's where I'm building relationships, connecting with other investors. LinkedIn, I'm also there as well. So those are the two best channels to contact me on. I would say probably Facebook is a lot more simpler, because with LinkedIn, based on my understanding, there's some restrictions. If you're not in my first level, you're not going to be able to find me. But in Facebook, I'm definitely in a lot of these groups. I'm very active, and I try to provide value. I talk to countless of people every day, and I learn something new, how somebody is taking down a deal, somebody that is investing in a deal. So definitely feel free to reach out to me with anything related to multifamily. I'm not an expert yet, but I do feel like I have enough information that I can definitely share with somebody who's starting out or is trying to take down their first or second deal.
Excellent, excellent. That's very generous. And speaking of being generous, I have one thing for you in the audience over there, which is like somewhere over here, there's a red button and it says subscribe, and that's bad because you should click on it so it's gray, and that means that you subscribed, and it costs you nothing, but it means that YouTube pays for these videos instead of me, which is better. So pretty please, with sugar on top, go ahead and do that. It means that I might show up on your list of suggestions suggestions in YouTube. You know, I don't know, people our age, like we don't even actually look at the suggestions really, right? Because I'm hopping into YouTube because I'm looking at it, it's like, oh, how do I don't know, replace this medulla oblongata? Uh, you know, so I'm looking for something, and so like, you know, it's no skin off your back. I promise it won't hurt at all. But anyway, thank you very much for joining me today, Dennis. It has been fantastic getting to know you.
It's a pleasure, Dan. Thank you so much for your time. And I learned just a lot from this little session. So everybody, make sure you definitely hit that subscribe if you haven't, and continue following Dan.
Awesome. Thanks, Dennis.